Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something you use every single second but probably never think about: the hidden blueprints that hold our digital world together. Yep, I'm talking about the structure behind your favorite apps, websites, you name it.
So, think about this for a second. How do apps and websites juggle millions, even billions of pieces of data and still let you find exactly what you need in a snap? I mean, from your social feed to your shopping cart, it's a ton of information. Well, the magic behind all that organization? It's something called a data model. And here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the basic idea of the database blueprint. Then, we'll look at the three main levels of detail. Think of it like going from an architect's first sketch to the builder's actual plan, and finally, right down to the nuts and bolts.
All right, let's jump right in. First up, the database blueprint. So what even is a data model when you get right down to it? The easiest way to think about it is like a blueprint for a huge skyscraper. It's not just a drawing of the rooms, right? It's the master plan. It shows how everything connects, what the rules are, like where you can and can't put a supporting wall, and even what kind of materials, or in our case, data types, you're allowed to use.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. These blueprints aren't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Nope, they actually come in three different levels of detail, kind of like zooming in from a high-level overview all the way down to the tiny details. Each level has a totally different job.
Yeah, you've got three main categories, and they basically take you on a journey, starting with the big abstract idea and getting more and more concrete. Let's stick with that building analogy to see exactly how it works. So you've got your high-level models. That's like the first concept sketch from the architect. Then you have representational models, which are more like the detailed floor plans the construction crew actually builds from. And finally, you get to the low-level models. Think of these as the super technical schematics for the electrical wiring and plumbing. Okay, so let's start at the top with that architect's sketch, the high-level model. This is all about the big picture. We're just trying to figure out the main pieces of our puzzle without getting bogged down in all the tiny technical details just yet.
So at this high level, the first thing you do is identify your entities, and an entity is really just a thing, a real-world object or concept you want to keep track of. So for building a company database, an employee is an entity. A project is another entity. Simple as that.
Okay, got our things? Cool. Next, each of those things, our entities, has attributes. These are just the details, the properties that describe the entity. So for our employee entity, the attributes would be things like their name, their salary, maybe their employee ID number. And then, the last piece of this high-level puzzle is the relationship. This is just how all our different entities connect to each other. For example, an employee works on a project. See? That works on part is the relationship. And boom, with those three things, entities, attributes, and relationships, you've got a high-level map of your whole system.
All right, let's move on to the builder's plan. This is what we call the representational model. Now, this is the level where most database developers live and breathe. It's where they take that abstract sketch we just talked about and turn it into a solid, buildable plan. Let's check out a few of the most important types, starting with some of the OGs.
One of the early models was the hierarchical model. Just picture a family tree or a company org chart. The data is organized in a strict top-down tree structure. And there's one really important rule here. Every child can only have one parent. That's it. No exceptions.
Then came the network model. This was kind of an evolution of the hierarchical one. It's way more flexible, think less like a strict tree and more like a social network graph. It's similar in a lot of ways, but it breaks that one huge rule we just mentioned. With a network model, a child can have more than one parent.
So that's the absolute key difference, right? The hierarchical model is strictly one-to-many. Think, one parent, many children. But the network model, it opens the door to many-to-many relationships. Like how a student can be in many classes and a class can have many students. It's just a more connected, web-like way of looking at data.
But let's be real. The undisputed champion, the one that runs the world today, is the relational model. And the reason it got so popular is because it's just brilliantly simple. It organizes everything into basic two-dimensional tables. Seriously. Just think of a bunch of spreadsheets that can all be linked together. It's incredibly powerful and flexible.
And check this out. Here's exactly how it works. You've got a table, say, for employees. Each row is one employee.
That's our entity. And each column gives you a piece of information about them. That's an attribute. Now, see that department ID column? That's the magic key. It lets you link this table to a completely different table that has all the info about the departments. It's so simple, but so powerful.
Okay, time to get our hands dirty. Let's go one level deeper and pop the hood to look at the nuts and bolts, the low-level model. This is the super technical layer. We're talking about the actual wiring and plumbing of our database building now.
Now this model, it's not for most people, not for end users, not even for most developers. This is for the computer specialists. It gets into the real nitty-gritty of how the data is physically stored on the computer's hard drive. It defines things like the exact format of the records, their order, and something called access paths. Think of an access path like a really smart index at the back of a book that lets the computer find exactly what it's looking for in the blink of an eye.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? It's that from that first simple sketch, all the way down to the physical foundation, these data models are the unsung heroes making our digital lives work. Every single app on your phone, every website you visit, it's all built on one of these blueprints. Which kind of leaves us with a huge question, right? As our data gets more and more complex, more connected than ever before, what's the next great blueprint going to look like?